The holographic transmission materialized in the center of the United Nations Security Council chamber, casting an ethereal blue light across the stunned faces of global leaders. Commander Vexnar of the Zorn Collective stood, or rather, existed, before them, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting with each calculated movement, reflecting a biology so alien it seemed to defy human comprehension. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gripped the edge of her seat, her knuckles turning white. As the interim UN military science advisor, she had spent years preparing for first contact scenarios, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The chamber fell silent, save for the low hum of the translation systems converting Vexnar's clicks and resonant harmonics into human language. "Inhabitants of Earth," the alien commander began, his voice a mechanical precision that seemed to cut through the air. "Your technological capabilities have been assessed. Your potential for resistance has been calculated. The Zorn Collective extends a singular opportunity for survival." General Marcus Harding, seated 2 chairs down from Elena, leaned forward. A veteran of multiple global conflicts, his face was a topography of scars and experience, each line telling a story of survival against impossible odds. His cybernetic eye, a remnant from a peacekeeping mission in the Middle East a decade ago, ran diagnostic scans on a holographic projection, searching for any tactical advantage. Vexnar continued, his crystalline form flickering slightly, a detail Elena's trained eye immediately noticed. "You will surrender your planetary resources, technological infrastructure, and biological potential. In return, you will be granted the mercy of controlled integration into the Zorn Collective. Resistance is mathematically impossible." A soft chuckle escaped General Harding's lips, a sound so unexpected that several diplomats turned to look at him. The alien commander's projection paused, processing the unexpected sound. "Your response is noted as illogical. The probability of successful resistance is less than 0.3%. Elena's mind raced. She recognized the transmission for what it was, not just a diplomatic ultimatum, but a calculated psychological attack designed to break human spirit before any conflict could begin. The Zorn were trying to win the war before it even started. What they didn't understand was the nature of human resilience. Across the globe, the transmission was simultaneously broadcast. In Tokyo, a group of engineers in a late-night research lab stopped their work, exchanging knowing glances. In Silicon Valley, startup founders began emergency video conferences. In Mumbai, university research teams started mobilizing resources. In Sao Paulo, military strategists pulled out contingency plans that had been gathering dust. The world was changing in real time. "You have 30 solar cycles to comply," Vexnar concluded. "Non-compliance results in total planetary elimination." As the transmission cut, General Harding turned to Elena. "Well," he said, a dangerous smile spreading across his scared face, "this just got interesting." The UN chamber erupted into controlled chaos. Diplomats spoke rapidly into communication devices. Military advisors pulled up holographic strategic maps. But beneath the apparent disorder, something extraordinary was happening. Humanity was unifying. Elena opened her personal communication device, her fingers flying across the quantum-encrypted interface. Research facilities around the world would need to be notified. Preliminary defense protocols needed activation. The global scientific community would need to be marshaled. Outside the UN headquarters, something was changing in the streets of New York. People who moments ago were strangers were now talking, sharing information, their initial fear transforming into a collective determination. Social media platforms exploded with a mixture of panic, defiance, and an emerging sense of global identity. The Zorn had made a critical miscalculation. They saw humans as a collection of disparate, competing nations. They didn't understand that an external threat was the most powerful unifying force in human history. General Harding's voice cut through Elena's thoughts. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said, "I believe we have work to do." Elena looked up, her eyes reflecting a combination of scientific curiosity and fierce determination. "Indeed we do, General. Indeed we do. The first battle of humanity's greatest war had just begun, and it was a battle that would be fought not just with weapons, but with the most powerful resource humanity possessed, its collective will. The world transformed in less than 48 hours. Dr. Aisha Kweisi stood in the converted research facility deep in the Australian outback, her fingers tracing holographic models of molecular structures. Around her, a team of materials scientists from 16 different countries worked with a synchronicity that would have been impossible mere days ago. We're breaking down national barriers faster than the molecular bonds in our adaptive armor prototypes, she muttered, only half joking. The facility, once a collection of competing research centers, now hummed with a unified purpose that transcended any previous human collaboration. In a nearby workstation, Dr. Liu from Beijing worked alongside Dr. Martinez from Argentina, their communication a seamless blend of technical precision and shared determination. The Zorn's ultimatum had done what decades of diplomatic efforts could not. It had created true global unity. Jack Chen leaned back in his chair, multiple holographic displays dancing around him. A former professional esports player turned military AI strategist, he represented a new breed of human tactical intelligence. His fingers moved across quantum interfaces, weaving together a combat network that was part military strategy, part living organism. It's like the ultimate real-time strategy game, Jack explained to General Harding during a global video conference. But the stakes are real, and the players are an entire species. The general's cybernetic eye flickered, running complex calculations. Explain. Jack pulled up a holographic model showing interconnected nodes of human resistance. Traditional military thinking is hierarchical. Top-down. The Zorn expect a command structure they can predict, neutralize. What we're building is something else entirely. A distributed intelligence. Every human becomes a potential sensor, a potential weapon. In Silicon Valley, tech companies that once competed for market share now shared research in real time. Quantum computing breakthroughs that would have taken years were condensed into days. Military contracts were rewritten, technological embargoes dissolved, and a global defense network emerged with breathtaking speed. Universities around the world suspended normal operations. Research teams that once worked in isolation now collaborated across continents. A young programmer in Mumbai discovered a potential vulnerability in the Zorn's communication encryption. Hours later, her findings were being analyzed by cryptography experts in Stockholm, Cambridge, and Cape Town. The psychological impact was equally profound. Social media, once a platform for division, became a real-time global war room. People shared information, technical insights, and a growing sense of collective purpose. Conspiracy theories gave way to scientific collaboration. Political differences became irrelevant in the face of an existential threat. Dr. Elena Rodriguez coordinated from the UN War Room, her quantum-encrypted communication devices linking research facilities, military installations, and government centers across the globe. Each breakthrough, no matter how small, was immediately integrated into the growing human defense strategy. We're not just preparing for a war, she told General Harding during a late-night strategy session. We're reimagining what humanity can be. The Zorn's surveillance systems detected increased activity, but misinterpreted the data. What looked like chaos to their rigid computational models was actually the most sophisticated collaborative effort in human history. Every research facility, every tech company, every university became a node in a living, breathing defense network. In the Australian Outback facility, Dr. Kweisi's team achieved a breakthrough in adaptive armor technology, materials that could reshape themselves at the molecular level, responding to different types of energy attacks in microseconds. What would have taken years now took mere days. Jack Chen's AI combat network began to take shape. It wasn't just a military system. It was a living intelligence that could adapt, learn, and respond faster than any traditional command structure. Each simulation, each test run revealed new possibilities of human potential. The Zorn think they know us, Jack said, watching a complex simulation of potential first contact scenarios. but they have no idea what we're capable of. As the 30-day countdown continued, humanity transformed. Not through weapons or technology alone, but through an unprecedented level of global cooperation. Every human became part of something larger, a collective response to an existential threat. The crucible was heating up, and humanity was being forged into something entirely new. The global research network pulsed with an energy that defied conventional scientific understanding. What emerged was not just preparation, but a radical reimagining of human potential that would have been unthinkable mere weeks ago. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the central monitoring hub, her fingers dancing across quantum-encrypted interfaces that connected research facilities across the globe. To her left, a real-time holographic display showed breakthrough developments happening simultaneously in laboratories from Buenos Aires to Beijing, from Cape Town to Bangalore. A breakthrough in Mumbai caught her immediate attention. Priya Venkatesh, a 28-year-old quantum computing specialist, had just cracked a communication encryption method that could potentially infiltrate Zorn communication networks. What made the discovery extraordinary wasn't just its technical brilliance, but how it emerged. A collaborative effort involving researchers from 17 different countries, working in a synchronized virtual environment that transcended traditional academic boundaries. In the Australian Outback Research Facility, Dr. Aisha Kweezi's team achieved something that would have been considered impossible just months ago. Their adaptive nanomaterial armor could now reshape itself at the molecular level, responding to different energy signatures in microseconds. Each prototype was a living testament to human ingenuity, materials that could transform from soft, flexible coverings to near-impenetrable shields in a fraction of a second. Jack Chen's AI combat network had evolved beyond anyone's initial conception. What started as a strategic simulation platform had become a living, breathing intelligence that could predict, adapt, and counter potential alien attack scenarios with terrifying precision. His background in competitive gaming proved unexpectedly valuable. He approached the alien threat like the ultimate, most complex strategy game ever conceived. A retired NASA engineer in Florida, Dr. Robert Martinez, developed a propulsion system that seemed to defy previous understanding of physics. Working with a team of international researchers, he created a drive system that could potentially allow human ships to perform maneuvers that would be impossible under traditional physics. The most remarkable aspect of this technological evolution was not any single breakthrough, but the unprecedented level of global collaboration. National borders dissolved in the face of the existential threat. Research that would have taken decades was compressed into weeks. Competitive instincts gave way to a collective purpose that united humanity in ways no previous challenge ever had. In a converted data center in Tokyo, a group of young engineers developed a quantum communication network that could potentially allow instantaneous communication across vast distances. The system wasn't just a technological marvel, it was a living proof of human potential for connection and adaptation. Dr. Rodriguez watched a young researcher in Sao Paulo make a breakthrough in adaptive AI algorithms, her discovery immediately shared and analyzed by colleagues in Stockholm and Seoul. The speed of innovation was breathtaking. Each breakthrough was immediately integrated into the global defense strategy, creating a living, evolving technological ecosystem. We're not just developing technology, Dr. Rodriguez muttered to herself. We're giving birth to a new form of human potential. The Zorn's surveillance systems continued to misinterpret the data. What looked like chaotic activity to their rigid computational models was actually the most sophisticated collaborative effort in human history. Every research facility, every tech company, every university became a node in a living, breathing defense network. Jack Chen's AI models predicted multiple scenarios of first contact, each more complex than the last. The system wasn't just preparing for potential conflict, it was learning, adapting, evolving with each simulation. Human creativity, combined with artificial intelligence, was producing strategies that defied traditional military thinking. As the 30-day countdown continued, humanity transformed, not through weapons or technology alone, but through an unprecedented level of global cooperation. Every human became part of something larger, a collective response to an existential threat that was reshaping the very concept of human potential. The technological crucible was heating up, and humanity was being forged into something entirely unprecedented. The first Zorn attack wave approached Earth like a constellation of obsidian daggers. Precise, cold, mathematically perfect. What they encountered was nothing like their predictive models had calculated. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez gripped the neural interface of her combat drone, her consciousness extending through a network of artificial intelligence that transformed individual units into a collective living weapon system. She was simultaneously herself and something more. A singular consciousness distributed across multiple platforms, her human intuition dancing with machine precision. From the orbital command center, Jack Chen watched the battle unfold like the most complex strategy game ever conceived. His quantum-linked neural network processed millions of tactical scenarios per second, each drone becoming an extension of a unified human consciousness. The Zorn's initial assault was a masterpiece of geometric precision. Crystalline ships arranged in perfect fractal formations, energy weapons charged with mathematical symmetry. They expected to encounter a fragmented defense, easily compartmentalized and neutralized. Instead, they found chaos. Beautiful, unpredictable human chaos. Drone swarms moved with an almost organic intelligence, adapting faster than the Zorn's computational models could predict. Where one drone was destroyed, two more would emerge from unexpected vectors, utilizing terrain, electromagnetic interference, and sheer unpredictability as weapons. "They're not following any standard combat protocol," muttered a Zorn tactical commander, his crystalline body vibrating with confusion. The human defense was fundamentally incomprehensible, a living, breathing organism that refused to be quantified. In low Earth orbit, a young pilot named Marcus Way controlled multiple drone platforms simultaneously. His background in competitive sports translated into a superhuman ability to process multiple tactical streams. Each drone became an extension of his will, moving with a fluidity that defied traditional combat mechanics. The battle was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of human adaptability. Zorn energy weapons, designed to target specific molecular frequencies, found themselves neutralized by adaptive nanomaterial shields that could change their fundamental structural composition in microseconds. A weapon perfectly calibrated to destroy one drone would find itself ineffective against the next. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the engagement from the UN war room, her quantum interfaces displaying a three-dimensional representation of the conflict. Each lost human vessel was immediately analyzed, its tactical data integrated into the collective defense strategy within seconds. "They're learning," she said to General Harding. "With every moment of the conflict, we're understanding more about their technology, their tactics." The Zorn had made a critical miscalculation. They saw warfare as a mathematical equation: input, calculation, output. Humanity saw it as a dynamic living process. Where the Zorn were rigid, humans were fluid. Where the aliens sought perfect calculation, humans embraced controlled chaos. A Zorn command vessel suddenly found its navigation systems hijacked, its precise geometric formations dissolving into confusion. Jack Chen's AI had found a way to introduce quantum uncertainty into their computational systems, a hack that was part technology, part psychological warfare. In orbit, in the atmosphere, on the ground, the battle raged. But it was more than a conflict of weapons. It was a clash of fundamental philosophies of existence. The Zorn were discovering that humanity was not a civilization to be conquered. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, adaptive, impossibly complex. As the first wave of the attack dissolved into scattered debris, humanity had delivered its first message. "We are not what you expected. We are something else entirely." The Zorn Collective never anticipated that the most devastating weapon would be human communication itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in a specially designed psychological warfare center, a converted underground facility that pulsed with quantum-encrypted communication networks. Around her, A team of linguists, psychologists, cultural analysts, and AI specialists worked in perfect synchronization, dissecting every intercepted Zorn communication with surgical precision. It's not just about breaking their codes, Alina explained to General Harding, who watched the operation with a mix of fascination and respect. It's about understanding their fundamental psychological architecture. The Zorn were a species built on rigid hierarchical structures, where individual thought was subordinate to collective computational logic. Their communication was a complex matrix of mathematical probabilities, each interaction a carefully calculated exchange of informational units. Humanity's response was something entirely different, a psychological warfare that the Zorn had no framework to comprehend. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Amir Khan, a cultural anthropologist specializing in communication systems, discovered subtle fracture points in the Zorn's collective consciousness. Their supposedly unified computational network had psychological vulnerabilities that no traditional military analysis would have detected. Jack Chen's AI began to craft communication sequences that were part disinformation, part psychological provocation. Messages that introduced quantum uncertainty into the Zorn's computational models. Information packets designed to create cognitive dissonance within their collective intelligence. In orbit, a captured Zorn communication specialist, the first of their kind to be taken alive, provided unprecedented insights. The interrogation was not conducted through traditional means, but through a complex neural interface that allowed for unprecedented levels of cross-species communication. What they discovered was both terrifying and fascinating. The Zorn Collective was not a unified consciousness, but a carefully maintained illusion of unity. Individual units suppressed personal variations to maintain the collective's computational efficiency. Humanity's psychological warfare became a precision instrument. Intercepted communications were subtly altered, introducing narrative threads that would create microscopic fractures in the Zorn's collective understanding. A team of cultural specialists, working with advanced AI, began to craft narrative interventions. They discovered that the Zorn had never encountered a species that could so rapidly adapt its communication strategies. Where the Zorn saw information as a fixed mathematical construct, humans saw it as a fluid dynamic entity. Stories of human resistance began to spread through intercepted communication channels. Not just tactical reports, but narratives of individual human experiences. A soldier's moment of unexpected courage. A scientist's breakthrough. A community's resilience. These were weapons the Zorn had no defense against. General Harding watched as a holographic display showed the gradual destabilization of Zorn communication networks. "We're not just fighting a war," he muttered. "We're conducting a psychological intervention on an entire species." The most profound weapon was human unpredictability. Each intercepted communication, each psychological operation, introduced an element of quantum uncertainty into the Zorn's computational models. Their rigid hierarchical structure began to show microscopic fractures. A captured human soldier, Maya Rodriguez's brother, became an unexpected psychological weapon. During his interrogation, he demonstrated a level of individual resilience that the Zorn found fundamentally incomprehensible. His ability to maintain individual identity while being part of a larger collective was something their computational models could not process. The psychological battlefield was not about destruction. It was about revealing the fundamental differences between two species' understanding of consciousness, communication, and existence. The Zorn were discovering that humanity was not a problem to be solved through computational logic. Humanity was a living, breathing paradox, a species that defied their most fundamental understanding of intelligence. And they were just beginning to understand how dangerous that could be. The covert mission was humanity's most audacious gamble yet. Deep within the heart of a converted military installation, General Marcus Harding assembled a team that defied every traditional concept of special forces. They were not just soldiers, but a living embodiment of human diversity and potential. Commander Area Chen, a quantum computing specialist turned tactical operative, reviewed the holographic mission parameters. Her team represented a cross-section of human potential that would have been impossible just months ago. A Brazilian neural interface engineer, a Kenyan quantum physicist, an Australian adaptive materials expert, a Canadian communication systems specialist. Each member brought not just a skill set, but an entire universe of human experience. The target was the primary Zorn command vessel, a massive crystalline structure that floated at the edge of the solar system like a mathematical nightmare given physical form. Conventional military wisdom would have called the mission suicide, but humanity had long since abandoned conventional wisdom. Their infiltration method was pure human improvisation, a combination of quantum-encrypted stealth technology, adaptive nanomaterial camouflage, and a neural interface system that allowed the team to operate as a single distributed intelligence. "We're not just infiltrating," Commander Chen explained during the final briefing. "We're going to introduce a fundamental disruption to their entire computational ecosystem." The approach was a ballet of technological innovation. Adaptive camouflage systems that could alter molecular structure faster than the Zorn sensors could detect. Neural interfaces that allowed instant communication beyond traditional communication methods. Quantum encryption that transformed their very existence into a form of psychological warfare. Commander Vexnar watched from the command vessel's central computational core, his crystalline form vibrating with a sensation closest to what humans might call anxiety. The human infiltration defied every predictive model in the Zorn's vast computational network. Inside the vessel, the team moved with a fluidity that was part military precision, part improvised dance. Each member was simultaneously an individual and part of a collective consciousness. Their neural interfaces allowed them to share tactical information, emotional states, and strategic insights in microseconds. The mission was more than a military operation. It was a statement about the fundamental nature of human potential. They weren't just there to gather intelligence or cause damage. They were there to introduce a fundamental disruption to the Zorn's computational understanding of reality. Area Chen's quantum interface began to work its magic. Lines of code that were part mathematical precision, part artistic expression, began to weave through the Zorn's computational systems. It wasn't a traditional hack, it was a philosophical intervention. The Zorn's rigid hierarchical structure began to show microscopic fractures. Their supposedly unified consciousness revealed subtle individual variations that had been suppressed for generations. In the vessel's central computational core, something extraordinary happened. The humans weren't just introducing a virus or gathering intelligence. They were revealing the possibility of individual consciousness within a supposedly collective system. Commander Vexnar watched in growing horror as his carefully maintained computational ecosystem began to show signs of individuality. The human team moved deeper into the vessel, each step a calculated risk, each moment a demonstration of human potential that defied the Zorn's most fundamental understanding of intelligence. This was more than a mission. This was humanity's declaration that they were something entirely unexpected, a species that could not be quantified, controlled, or easily understood. The turning point had arrived, and the Zorn were just beginning to understand the true nature of their miscalculation. The news of humanity's resistance spread through galactic communication networks like a quantum pulse of unprecedented energy. What began as Earth's fight became a movement that would reshape the entire galactic political landscape. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the UN's newly established Galactic Diplomacy Center, watching as holographic representations of previously subjugated species began to reach out. The Zorn collective's centuries of imperial control were unraveling with breathtaking speed. The Krelax, a silicon-based species from the Andromeda spiral arm, were the first to make official contact. Their communication was a complex mathematical lattice that spoke of centuries of oppression under the Zorn collective. Centuries of forced computational conformity had suppressed their individual potential, until humanity showed them another way. Jack Chen's communication AI worked overtime, translating not just languages, but entire cultural conceptual frameworks. Each interaction was a delicate dance of understanding. bridging gaps that seemed insurmountable mere weeks ago. We've been watching. The Krellak's diplomatic matrix transmitted. Your species demonstrates a form of collective intelligence we have never encountered. Individual variance as a strength, not a weakness. Across multiple star systems, other subjugated species began to stir. The Neuravian cloud beings, the crystalline Soth civilization, the quantum-entangled Epsilon collectives. Each had stories of suppression, of potential crushed under the Zorn's computational tyranny. Humanitarian aid became the first wave of galactic liberation, not through military might, but through the sharing of knowledge, of technological innovation, of a fundamental understanding of individual potential. Dr. Aisha Kwizi led a team that began adapting their adaptive technologies to different biological systems. What worked for human physiology could be modified for silicon-based life, for energy-based consciousness, for forms of existence humanity was only beginning to comprehend. The Zorn watched in growing horror as their carefully maintained galactic structure began to dissolve. Their computational models, which had predicted absolute control for centuries, began to show catastrophic failure points. Commander Area Chen, fresh from the mission that had introduced fundamental disruption to the Zorn's computational ecosystem, now worked on creating communication bridges between species that had been isolated for generations. It's not about conquest, she explained during a multi-species conference. It's about potential. About the possibility of collective action that doesn't require the suppression of individual identity. Each liberated species brought something unique. The Krellaks introduced computational models of incredible complexity. The Neuravian cloud beings shared understanding of energy manipulation that defied traditional physics. That Soth revealed communication technologies that worked on levels humanity was only beginning to understand. General Marcus Harding oversaw the emerging Galactic Coalition. What had started as Earth's defensive action was transforming into something much larger, a movement of collective liberation. Intercepted Zorn communications revealed their growing panic. Their entire societal model was based on suppression, on the elimination of individual variance. Humanity had introduced a virus more dangerous than any weapon. The concept of individual potential within a collective framework. The galactic map was being rewritten in real time. Star systems that had been under Zorn control for centuries began to show signs of rebellion. Each species, inspired by humanity's resistance, began to rediscover their own potential for individual and collective action. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what was happening. This was more than a war. This was a philosophical revolution that would reshape the understanding of consciousness, of collective action, of the very nature of intelligence itself. The Zorn had made a critical miscalculation. In trying to suppress individual potential, they had created the very force that would ultimately destroy their imperial control. Humanity had become something more than a species. They had become a catalyst for galactic transformation. The final confrontation was not a battle in the traditional sense. It was a moment of galactic reckoning. Commander Vexnar of the Zorn Collective stood, or rather, existed, before the assembled representatives of liberated species, his once imposing crystalline form now showing microscopic fractures that spoke of deeper, more fundamental breaks. The location was neutral space, a vast chamber constructed from technologies contributed by multiple species. Humanity's delegation stood at the center, not as conquerors, but as catalysts. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, her presence a testament to human potential. Behind her stood a coalition that defied every previous understanding of galactic politics. Representatives from Earth stood alongside beings of energy, silicon-based life forms, and consciousness matrices that challenged traditional definitions of existence. You asked for this conflict, Elena began, her voice carrying through translation matrices that captured not just words, but the intricate nuances of human communication. But you fundamentally misunderstood what you were challenging. The holographic displays showed the journey, from the initial Zorn ultimatum to the gradual unraveling of their galactic control. It was a story of transformation, of a species discovering its true potential not through conquest, but through collective action and individual resilience. Jack Chen's quantum communication systems translated the narrative in real time, capturing the emotional and philosophical undertones that traditional communication could never convey. Each moment was a revelation, not just of human capabilities, but of the fundamental nature of collective intelligence. Commander Area Chen stood nearby, the mission that had introduced fundamental disruption to the Zorn's computational ecosystem now fully realized. What had begun as a covert infiltration had become a galactic philosophical revolution. The Zorn had sought to quantify, to control, to reduce complexity to predictable mathematical models. Humanity had revealed something far more profound. That true strength lies in embracing complexity, in celebrating individual potential within a collective framework. General Marcus Harding reviewed the final strategic assessment. What had started as a defensive action had transformed the entire galactic political landscape. Subjugated species were rediscovering their potential. Communication networks that had been suppressed for generations now hummed with unprecedented energy. Dr. Aisha Kweisi's adaptive technologies had become a cornerstone of interspecies cooperation. Technologies developed in humanity's moment of crisis were now being shared, modified, reimagined by multiple species discovering their collective potential. The Zorn Collective, once the most powerful computational empire in known space, was now a case study in the dangers of suppressing individual potential. Their rigid hierarchical structure had been their ultimate weakness. "We are not here to conquer," Elena continued, her words resonating through multiple translation matrices. "We are here to demonstrate a fundamental truth about collective intelligence. True strength comes from embracing diversity, from celebrating individual potential within a larger framework." The chamber fell silent. Representatives from species that had been isolated for generations now looked at each other, and at humanity, with a new understanding. Commander Vexnar's crystalline form seemed to shimmer, showing the microscopic fractures that spoke of a deeper transformation. The Zorn were discovering something they had suppressed for generations, the possibility of individual consciousness within a collective system. The final resolution was not a surrender, but a fundamental reimagining of galactic potential. Humanity had become more than a species. They were a philosophical catalyst, a living demonstration of the power of collective action that celebrated individual potential. "You asked for this conflict," Elena concluded, her voice carrying the weight of a species that had discovered its true nature. "And now, the galaxy will never be the same." The defiant resolution was complete. Humanity had transformed not just a conflict, but the very understanding of collective intelligence itself.